Hello and welcome to lesson 4 of week 12. In this lesson, we are going to look at border images. We are going to look at the units for length measurement in CSS. We are going to look at specificity and the important rule. And then we are going to look at the math functions in CSS. My name is Mildred. For this lesson, we are going to work with the index file, and I have created a container on the page. So we are going to look at how to use an image for the borders of an element or of a container. For this, we use the border image property written like this, and this is just a shorthand for border image slice, width, outset, repeat, and for border image source. And so most of the time you always find the border image without having to specify the slice, the width, the outset, the repeat, and the source. The slice is just where to slice the image. The repeat is how it will stretch at the middle section. So if you want the middle to be round or otherwise, so you can see the different values of the repeat. You want it to stretch, space, round, or you want it to repeat. So we are just going to use the shorthand border image, and then you can put a URL here to specify the source of the image. And if you have an image in your images folder that you can use for border image, then you can decide to put that. So let me try to use tick.png, and I want to specify the slice. I'll put it at 30%, and then let's say we want it round. Save this, come to my div and put a class of border image, and always make sure that you specify a style for the border just in case the image doesn't load. And so I'll make this 2px solid and blue. So always have a style for the border, so if there's a problem with this is going to happen. So I'll save this, refresh my page, and I have the tick mark all around the border. Let's say I use something like repeating linear gradient, and what I want here is I want it to repeat, let's say blue, coral. So let's use linear gradient, not repeating. So you can use repeating to form a pattern, but we'll use blue, coral, and let's say we want the slice to be at 30. Save this, refresh, and we have it like this. So we can change the slice to be 10 to see how it goes, and then we have the blue and coral like this. So if we have the width now, and I want the width to be, let's say 20 pixels, and I want it to be round, there's actually no need for the repeat, so we have it like this. So if I change this to 10px, so you get the idea on how to use images for border. So you can either use linear gradients to form your kind of border images like this, or you can use an actual image by using the URL and specifying the source of the image. So let us look at the units in CSS. So far we have been using things like px, em, and we know the meaning of these units, and there's a reason we do not use something like centimeters, inches, millimeters that are standard length units of measurement, and that is because they do not do well for screen devices. But if you are writing your styles for like a printer, then they can work well. But because most of the time you'll be coding for screen devices, you want to avoid the use of those units of measurements. So you want to use EM. EM is a relative unit of measurement for length, and it always means that you want to specify a size that is relative to the font size of the element. So if you put 2em like this, it means that it is 2 times the size of the current font. There's something we call rem, R-E-M, like this, and it's always relative to the font size of the root element. We use pixels, which is what we've used most of the time, and this is always relative to the viewing device. If we use PT for points, or we can use PC for pickers, and PC is always equal to 12 PT, and then we can use percentage, like we'll specify 20%, and all of these are relative to different things. So the percentage is relative to the parent element on the page. So we have other units like you use the EX, you use things like the, let's say CH, you use something like the VW, or you use something like VH or VMin or VMax. So you can research these units that we do not use regularly to see what they are used for, how they are used, and what the values really mean. When we have styles on the page, so I'm going to create a style like this. We want to create a style using all of the different types of selector. Let's say we'll create a style for the p tag, and we change the text color to red. Let's create another style to be dot text color, and we're going to change this color to blue. Let's create a style with the ID hash text color, and we'll change this to color, let's use green. So we've used the element selector, the class selector, and the ID selector, and then we're going to use style is equal to, let's say, color coral. In CSS, when you have an inline style, it takes priority over any style you have elsewhere. So the inline style will always take priority. The next style that will take priority is going to be the ID. After the inline, anything with the ID takes priority. So let's say p class is equal to text color, and we'll put ID is equal to text color. When I save this, the ID will take priority and the class style is not going to apply, because what we are going to have here is going to be a color of green. So I'll save, refresh, and we have green because ID has a higher importance than class. So whenever you have a style, you can have an element with an inline style, which is the highest priority, or if that doesn't exist, it's going to go with the ID with the next highest priority, and then it's going to go with the class, that's the next highest, and then it's going to go with the element, which is the least important order of styles. So what happens is that we have a way to calculate this. Every time you have an inline style, it has a specificity of 1000. So we have the order to be like this. We have the first one to be inline. Inline is higher than ID, which is higher than class. So when we say class, we mean both pseudo classes and attribute selectors are part of this, and this is higher than the element and pseudo elements on the page. So every time you have an inline, you have a specificity of 1000. When you have an ID, what you will do is, so it's the power of 10. ID is going to be 100. When you have a class, it's going to be 10. And when you have an element, it's going to be 1. So every time you want to, for instance, say you want to add, what is the specificity of a style that has p hash text color? So you're going to say p is an element, which is 1 plus 100 is going to be 101. So that's how you calculate specificity of elements. So always take note that inline styles will override styles elsewhere. ID is the next highest order. Class, including pseudo classes and attribute selector, are the third in the order, and then elements and pseudo elements are the least important on a style sheet. So whenever you have two styles for one particular element, it is going to override. So at this point now, if I put only class of text color, because the class selector is higher than the element selector, it is not going to apply the color of red to the p tag, but apply the color of blue, because right now I have a style for the p tag and I put a style using the class selector, and it's going to pick the one with the highest order, which is the class with the color of blue. And when I refresh, I will have it blue because the class has a higher importance. There's a way we can actually change all of this by putting something like the bang important rule like this. And once we put this in front of an element, what now happens is that it now overrides the importance and make this of higher importance than this. And so when I refresh, I should have my text color in red, because right now I have already changed my order of importance to this. This is actually going to be seen as very important when you begin to use CSS frameworks to style, and then you are loading these frameworks from a content delivery network and you don't have control over the style sheet, or you cannot edit the style sheet. At this point, you create your own custom style sheet and begin to put rules for elements that you want to be on the page, and put the important rule so that it overrides the style in the content delivery network and do not apply those styles. So in the event where the p tag in the style of, let's say, Bootstrap, for instance, is black by default, and on your web page you want it to be red by default, you specify a style on your custom style sheet and put the important rule here to make sure that it loads your own style, not the style from the content delivery network. The last thing we are going to look at is the math functions that we have in CSS. In CSS, we can have things like calculation on the page. Let's say we have a style, for instance, for the P elements. We want it to have a border of, let's say, 1px double red. We want to use CSS math function. Let's say we want it to have a width. And at this point, if we do not want to specify a width, we want to do we want the system to calculate the width for this. We can use a calc function in CSS like this, and then we can say something like 50% minus we want to subtract things like 5 pixels from this. So this is going to do the calculation. So the calculation you are going to use for the arithmetic is either subtraction, addition, multiplication, division, so things like this. This function is going to calculate this and use the result and apply it to the width for this. So let me change this, remove this, save, refresh. So I have a border for this, and it calculates the width of this to be the width that I have specified. I don't know what it is, but I just randomly selected something. We can also use a function called the max function like this, and you want to put you want the maximum of 2 or 3 list of widths. So let's say 50%, or we want 200 pixels, or we want 100 pt. Now you're going to tell the browser to look at which of this is the maximum and apply this to the width. So I'll save this, refresh my page, and it's going to apply the maximum there. So let me put this as 70%, so we can see a significant difference. Save, refresh, and I have it change. If we want to use the min function instead, and we say use the minimum of these 3 values, save, refresh, and we have it select the minimum of the width. So it uses the smallest value when you use min, max for maximum value, and when you use calc, it does the arithmetic calculation of what you have there. And this is where we end this lesson. Thank you, and see you in the next lesson.